in the quaint village of Elmwood Hollow, nestled amid the rolling hills of the English countryside, the autumn of 1952 brought with it a crisp chill that whispered of impending winter. The leaves had turned to shades of russet and gold, carpeting the narrow lanes where thatched cottages huddled together like old friends sharing secrets. At the heart of the village stood Hollow Manor, a grand Georgian house with ivy, clinging walls and mullioned windows that gazed out over manicured gardens, now ablaze with the season's fiery hues. It was here, in this picturesque setting, that the annual Hallow Fête was to be held, a tradition upheld by the Harrington family for generations. Miss Jane Marple, that unassuming yet keenly observant spinster from nearby St. Mary Mead, had been invited to stay at the manor by her old acquaintance, Lady Evelyn Harrington. Lady Evelyn, a widow of considerable means and even greater social ambition, had written to Miss Marple with effusive enthusiasm about the event. "Do come, dear Jane," the letter had read. "It shall be a splendid affair, with games and costumes and all the village folk. One needs a bit of cheer in these dreary post-war days." Miss Marple, ever curious about human nature and its foibles, had accepted, packing her sensible woolens and a warm shawl against the October evenings. Upon her arrival by the afternoon train, Miss Marple was met at the station by young Timothy Harrington, Lady Evelyn's nephew and heir presumptive. Timothy, a lanky fellow in his early 30s with a mop of unruly brown hair and a perpetual air of distraction, drove her to the manor in a rather battered Austin. "Aunt Evelyn's in a tizzy over the preparations," he confided as they rattled along the hedgerow road. "She's got the whole village involved, pumpkins, lanterns, and some silly game she's dreamt up. Calls it the Hallowe'en hunt. Sounds a bit daft to me, but what do I know?" Miss Marple smiled faintly, her blue eyes twinkling behind her spectacles. "Oh, games can be quite revealing, Mr. Harrington. People show their true colors when they're playing make-believe." The manor loomed ahead, its chimneys puffing lazy smoke into the slate-grey sky. As they entered the grand hall, with its polished oak floors and portraits of stern ancestors, Lady Evelyn swept in to greet them. She was a formidable woman in her late 50s, dressed in a tweed skirt and pearl necklace, her silver hair impeccably coiffed. "Jane, my dear, how marvelous you've come. The Fête is tomorrow night. Hallowe'en itself. We've transformed the old ballroom into a veritable haunted wonderland." Over tea in the drawing room, served with delicate china cups and scones fresh from the oven, Lady Evelyn introduced the household. There was her daughter, Clarissa, a pretty but petulant young woman of 25, recently returned from a disappointing season in London. Clarissa lounged on the chintz sofa, fiddling with a string of beads, her dark eyes flashing with unspoken discontent. "Mother insists on these village affairs," she sighed, "as if dressing up as witches and goblins will make life any less dull." Next was Dr. Reginald Forbes, the village physician, a stout man with a greying moustache and a hearty laugh, who had dropped by to discuss the Fête's arrangements. He was a close friend of the family, having attended to their ailments for years. "I'll be there as the mad scientist," he chuckled, stirring his tea, "though I dare say my real potions are far more effective than any Hallowe'en brew." Then there was Mrs. Lydia Croft, Lady Evelyn's companion and distant cousin, a mousy woman in her 40s, with pinched features and a habit of wringing her hands. She managed the household with quiet efficiency, though Miss Marple noted a certain tension in her manner, as if she carried unspoken burdens. "Everything is in order, Evelyn," Mrs. Croft murmured. "The caterers from the village have confirmed the apple cider and toffee apples." Finally, there was Victor Langdon, a suave businessman from London and Clarissa's fiancé. Tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, he exuded charm, but with an undercurrent of calculation that Miss Marple found intriguing. "Delighted to meet you, Miss Marple," he said, kissing her hand with continental flair. "Evelyn speaks so highly of your insights." As the afternoon waned, Miss Marple retired to her guest room, a cozy chamber overlooking the garden where gardeners were setting up stalls for the Fête. She unpacked her knitting, a soft grey cardigan she was making for her nephew Raymond's wife, and settled by the window. The village below buzzed with anticipation. Children scampered about with carved pumpkins, and the church bell tolled evensong. Yet, amid the idyllic scene, Miss Marple sensed an undercurrent of unease. Lady Evelyn had mentioned in passing a recent quarrel over the manor's future. Timothy wished to modernize the estate, while Clarissa dreamed of selling it for a life in the city. And Victor, she thought, watching him stroll the grounds with Clarissa, seemed overly interested in the family's finances. That evening, dinner was a formal affair in the dining room, with candlelight flickering on silverware and crystal. The conversation turned to the Hallowe'en game Lady Evelyn had devised. "It's called the Deadly Hunt," she explained with glee. "Guests will draw cards assigning them roles, hunter, prey, or ghost. They'll search the manor and grounds for clues, but beware the poisoned chalice, hidden somewhere. The one who finds it without being caught, wins a prize. A lovely antique brooch from the family collection." Timothy rolled his eyes. "Sounds like a recipe for chaos, aunt. What if someone takes it too seriously?" "Nonsense," Lady Evelyn retorted. "It's all in good fun. Besides, with Dr. Forbes here, we shan't worry about any real mishaps." Miss Marple listened quietly, her needles clicking rhythmically. She recalled a similar game from her youth in St. Mary Mead, where pretended deaths had revealed real animosities. Human nature, she mused to herself, is much the same everywhere. Greed, jealousy, fear, they lurk beneath the surface, waiting for a mask to slip. The next day dawned misty and cool, perfect for Hallowe'en. The village green teemed with activity, stalls selling homemade jams, a fortune teller's tent, and a bonfire pit for later. By evening, as dusk fell, guests arrived at Hollow Manor in costumes. Witches, vampires and ghosts mingling under strings of lanterns. Miss Marple, opting for simplicity, wore her usual tweed suit with a black shawl, declaring herself an observer of the supernatural. The fete began with merriment, children bobbing for apples, adults sipping mulled wine. Lady Evelyn, dressed as a medieval queen, gathered everyone in the ballroom for the game. "Remember," she announced, "the chalice is hidden, filled with a harmless poison. Just colored water. Find it, avoid the hunters, and claim your reward." Cards were drawn. Timothy became a hunter, Clarissa a ghost, Victor prey, Dr. Forbes another hunter, and Mrs. Croft a reluctant prey. Miss Marple drew observer, content to watch from the sidelines. As the game commenced, laughter echoed through the halls. Guests dashed about, hiding in alcoves and behind curtains. But then, a scream pierced the air. From the conservatory, Miss Marple hurried there with the others, her heart quickening. Lady Evelyn lay crumpled on the tiled floor, a ornate chalice clutched in her hand, her face contorted in agony. Dr. Forbes knelt beside her, feeling for a pulse. "She's dead," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Poisoned by the look of it. But the chalice was meant to be harmless." The room fell silent, the festive lanterns now casting eerie shadows. Inspector Craddock from the county police arrived swiftly, sealing off the manor. "No one leaves," he declared. This was no accident. Miss Marple, standing quietly in the corner, gazed at the scene. The chalice, she noted, bore traces of a bitter residue, not the innocent water promised. And Lady Evelyn's expression, it reminded her of a case in St. Mary Mead, where envy had turned deadly. Poor Evelyn, she thought. Who among these players turned the game real? The following morning, Hollow Manor awoke to a somber hush, the Hallowe'en decorations now mocking remnants of shattered gaiety. Inspector Craddock, a solid man with a no-nonsense moustache, set up headquarters in the library, its shelves lined with leather, bound tomes gathering dust. Miss Marple, having offered her assistance with characteristic modesty, was permitted to observe. Craddock knew her reputation from previous cases. "Miss Marple," he said over a cup of strong tea, "your insights might prove invaluable. This seems a family affair, poisoned chalice and all." "Indeed, Inspector," she replied, her eyes sharp. "But remember, in villages like this, secrets are like ivy, they cling and spread." The autopsy, rushed through, confirmed cyanide in the chalice, a swift and silent killer. The harmless water had been tampered with. Who had access? Everyone, it seemed. The chalice had been hidden by Lady Evelyn herself, but the game allowed for meddling. First interviewed was Timothy Harrington. Seated in an armchair, he fidgeted with his cufflinks. "I was hunting in the East Wing when I heard the scream," he said. "Aunt Evelyn and I argued yesterday about the estate. She wanted to preserve it as is, but I need funds for improvements. But murder, preposterous." Miss Marple noted his evasive glance. Young men in debt, she thought, often see inheritance as a quick fix. She recalled a nephew in St. Mary Mead who had similar troubles. Next, Clarissa. Tearful in a silk dressing gown, she dabbed her eyes. "Mother was overbearing, always meddling in my life. She disapproved of Victor, said he was after the money. We quarreled, yes, but I loved her. Her motive, freedom to marry and escape the village. Victor, questioned afterward, was polished but tense. Evelyn and I had words. She threatened to cut Clarissa off if we wed. But I assure you my affections are genuine." His city background suggested opportunism. Dr. Forbes, puffing on a pipe, admitted prescribing sedatives to Lady Evelyn but denied access to cyanide. "I keep poisons locked in my surgery, though someone could have pilfered it." His alibi, hunting with witnesses. Mrs. Croft, pale and trembling, confessed to resenting her dependent status. Evelyn treated me like a servant at times. But poison. She had been in the kitchen, preparing treats. Miss Marple wandered the grounds, knitting in hand, chatting with villagers. The FT had drawn locals, but the murder weapon pointed inward. In the conservatory, she examined the chalice, antique silver, family heirloom. Who knew its hiding spot? She pondered. Over luncheon, cold meats and pickles, she observed the suspects. Tensions simmered. Clarissa glared at Timothy. Victor whispered to Dr. Forbes. Croft served silently. Afternoon brought more interviews. A maid mentioned overhearing Lady Evelyn accuse Victor of forgery. Something about business papers. Timothy admitted gambling debts. Clarissa revealed a secret lover in London, thwarted by her mother. Miss Marple, sipping tea in the drawing room, reflected. It's like that affair with the vicar's wife. Jealousy masters duty. She intuited deeper connections. By evening, Craddock shared findings: cyanide from the doctor's stock, missing vial, fingerprints on the chalice Lady Evelyn's and others smudged. Miss Marple suggested checking Elibis more closely. People lie for the oddest reasons, Inspector. As days passed, Elmwood Hollow buzzed with gossip, the tea shop and pub alive with theories. Miss Marple, taking her daily constitutional, overheard whispers. That nephew's always short of cash. The doctor's been acting queer. A twist emerged: a letter found in Lady Evelyn's desk, disinheriting Timothy in favor of Clarissa, but only if she broke with Victor. Motive strengthened for all. Then, a red herring: Mrs. Croft confessed to tampering with the chalice, but only adding sugar for a prank. I wanted to spoil Evelyn's game, she admitted tearfully, but tests showed no sugar, only poison. False lead. Dr. Forbes revealed a secret: he and Lady Evelyn had been lovers years ago, ended bitterly. She threatened to expose an old medical error if I didn't support her against Victor. Jealousy. Victor produced an alibi witness. A villager who saw him in the garden during the critical time, but the witness, an old gardener, had poor eyesight. Clarissa collapsed in hysterics, claiming a ghostly figure threatened her. Hallowe'en prank or real danger? Stakes rose. Another accident nearly befalls Timothy, a loose stair rail. Miss Marple uncovered a hidden will, favoring Mrs. Croft. Layers upon layers, she thought, like peeling an onion. A misdirect. Poison traces in the kitchen, pointing to the cook. But she was innocent, a setup. Tensions peaked at a village meeting, accusations flying. Miss Marple observed quietly, piecing clues. Miss Marple gathered her thoughts in the quiet of her room, knitting furiously. Clues aligned at the chalice's position, alibis inconsistencies, motives intertwined. She recalled a similar poisoning in St. Mary Mead, disguised as suicide but murder. Here the game provided cover. The key: Dr. Forbes' missing vial, but he had no opportunity. Timothy's debts, but he was hunting elsewhere. Clarissa's resentment, Victor's greed, Mrs. Croft's grudge. Then, a flash: the chalice wasn't poisoned before hiding, it was switched during the game. Who could? Someone who knew the spot. Lady Evelyn confided in Mrs. Croft, but deeper: Victor's business involved chemicals, access to cyanide. Yet, intuition pointed elsewhere. Clarissa's beads. One matched a broken chain near the conservatory. Miss Marple requested a gathering in the ballroom. I believe I know the truth, she said mildly. Suspects assembled, Craddock presiding. She began. This was no random act, but calculated. Using the game as veil, she outlined red herrings, then revealed Dr. Forbes in collusion with Clarissa. No. Twist: it was Mrs. Croft, driven by years of humiliation, poisoning the chalice after learning of the will's change. But wait, evidence showed Victor's fingerprints clear. Miss Marple paused. Actually, my dears, it's Timothy. But no. Her mind raced. True culprit, Victor, forging documents, poisoned to silence Lady Evelyn, who discovered. But alibis, revelation: the doctor supplied the poison unwittingly. But the hand was Clarissa's, jealous of mother's control, staging it during the game. Miss Marple explained. You see, Clarissa drew the ghost card. Perfect for slipping unseen. Motive: inheritance and freedom. Clues: her knowledge of the hiding spot. Bitter residue on her gloves. Overheard threat. Stakes high. Confrontation set. In the ballroom, under the chandelier's glow, Miss Marple laid it bare. Clarissa, my dear, you couldn't bear your mother's interference. You switched the chalice's contents during the chaos, knowing she'd find it first. As host, she cheated a peek. Clarissa broke down, confessing, she was ruining my life. Victor and I deserved happiness. Victor, shocked, denied involvement, but evidence showed he provided the cyanide from his lab, thinking it for a prank. No, Clarissa acted alone, stealing from Dr. Forbes' bag. Craddock arrested her, the room sighing in relief. Timothy inherited, vowing to honor the manor. Dr. Forbes retired quietly. Mrs. Croft found peace elsewhere. Miss Marple, packing to leave reflected, human frailty inspector, greed cloaked in love. The village returned to calm, Hallowe'en ghosts banished. As her train pulled away, Miss Marple smiled. Another puzzle solved, thanks to observing the ordinary.